Well, just before we get started, just a disclosure. The two of us started our journey together in this exciting world of hospitality 45 years ago. We both joined on the same day. I think it was probably the 19th of August in 1978. So some 45 years ago. And he and I have been friends since then. He went to Cornell ESSEC in France. I followed him, inspired by that. I followed him a few years later, and he was very gracious to make sure I got there. We were very fortunate to have common mentors. I'm just trying to highlight the similarities in our careers before we chose our separate paths. And I think we were very fortunate to be amongst the younger general managers at the Oberoi. You were looking after Hyderabad, I was at Delhi. And then at some stage, I think in the mid-90s, we went separate ways. I went on to explore a career in luxury hospitality, and I did a few other things before he always had this entrepreneurial streak until he really found his own with Sarovar and created a magnificent brand and a tremendous institution. So it's a pleasure sitting here and to have this conversation. We were asked that we would like to take a look at, our story in a way also chronicles, the journey of Indian hospitality over the past 4 decades. So just taking a look at yesterday, today, and tomorrow, my opening question would be, Ajay, that when you look at your 40-year plus journey, what are some of the exciting milestones that come to mind?
Thanks, Rajiv. Thanks, Bhuvanesh. It's humbling to be in front of such an august audience. If I set aside the time I spent in Africa and the time I spent in between selling shoes and shirts, I think the key milestones in India's journey were probably somewhere in the mid-90s, early 2000s, when the economy opened up and all of a sudden the floodgates opened and things were available in this country, and we were again the flavor of the world because of all that development had to offer. Moving on from there to 2008 and the big meltdown when everything went for a toss. So 2005, 6, 7, all you did is looked at your rates and pushed them up 25, 30% a year without thinking of anything else, and you got away with it. And it's now been really from 2008 to 2023, 15 years is what it's taken us to get back to those average room rates. The next major bit I think is the flood of technology, and for India specifically, the political stability that we've seen over the last 5 or 10 years, and I hope it's here to stay. So strongly changing landscape, I think, amongst other things, and I'll bounce it off you. We started at a time when there were not too many hotel options in this country, and the options are only at the deluxe level or the 5-star level. So there was Oberoi, there was Taj, there was ITDC somewhere, and we sort of didn't take them all so seriously. And then there was nothing in between, and then there was a lot of rubbish at the bottom. So if you wanted to get a clean room, it was a tough task. That's all changed. And in the Sarovar journey of the last 28 years now, mid-market was something that only 1 or 2 players were in. The bigger international players didn't really venture in those areas. They were happy with their 200, 300 bigger hotels and the larger brands. In the last 5 or 10 years, there is no one left out there who doesn't want to be in the mid-market, who doesn't want to be in the tier 2, tier 3 cities where all the growth is. So it's a very, very divergent, very complex, very competitive landscape. From a luxury point of view, I don't know how you feel about that.
Ajay, I'll just backtrack a little. I was just trying to jog my memory, and I wanted to share this because there are a number of people in this room who are, the younger generation. So it's important for them to get a sense of perspective, And so, in the 80s, India was pretty much an island, when it came to hospitality. And I remember the first time you had the PATA conference coming here. It was a big thing for the entire industry. And these were the time of, this was at a time when, you know, industry started converging. The Taj and the Oberoi were the two big brands at that particular time. They worked together. I think one of the biggest things that happened was in 1990 that you had the LHW convention. This is the leading hotels convention. So this is a landmark event for the country, which people need to understand, because it was the first time that you had about 175 people who were the general managers of the finest hotels in the world and owners of the finest hotels of the world who were coming to India. And they were coming to India and they were going to be here, or coming to Delhi largely, and they were going to be here for 6 nights. You know, so a hotel can pretend to, or can, you know, there are no secrets after 2 nights or 3 nights in a hotel, especially from hoteliers. So, and it was a tremendous opportunity for Indian brands, or let's say for the Oberoi and the Taj, because there were 3 leading hotels, and I'm delighted that, you know, I used to be at the Oberoi general, I was the general manager of the Oberoi at that time, and Ratan Keswani was my deputy there. The other leading hotel was the Taj Mansingh, and Ronnie Lobo was the general manager there, fabulous hotelier. And we had Mr. Shashank Varti here, who was the general manager of the Taj Palace. And these 3 hotels showcased Indian hospitality. And you know, for the next 10 years, when we went to leading hotel conventions, we had general managers of those host hotels coming to us and telling us that, you know, you guys raised the bar so high that we are so much under pressure. So, but what really happened was that it put Indian hospitality on the map. You know, so this was one big event, 1990, this thing. The next big thing that happened was that we had dollar tariff, which was introduced in 1992, 1993, you know, which is something which I think many people in this room have no idea what we are talking about, perhaps. But you had dollar tariff, and dollar tariff was something which continued till 2007 or 2008. You had a dual tariff. You had a rupee tariff and a dollar tariff, and there was a differential of 20 to 25% between the two. And it worked. Right, wrong, we can go into those long debates, but it worked, and it worked certainly for the hotel sector. You know, the third big thing was that there were no international hotel chains. The reason there were no international hotel chains in the country is because you had the Hyatt Regency, and an international operator required a technical services contract to be able to offer select services. You could offer, you know, it was basically a glorified franchise operation. And this was how it stood till the mid-1990s. You know, and this is a story which I don't mind sharing with everybody. Captain Nair was flirting with Four Seasons. And they were very keen that Four Seasons, and there's a joint branding, and Leela comes in with Four Seasons. So actually, the rules were tweaked, and doors opened for international chains to come in. And it is only in 1998 or 1999 that foreign brands could come in. So that is one of the reasons why we did not have any brands, you know, from this thing. So I think that's a point which people need to be made aware of. I mean, we can go on, but I think just coming to your question, Ajay, what I feel very proud about is that what have we achieved in the last 30 years. You remember in 1987 when we used to be young EAMs, Mr. P.R.S. Oberoi sent us on a fam trip he said, no, I want you boys to spend 3 nights at the Oriental in Bangkok. I want you to spend 3 nights at the Regent in Bangkok. I want you to spend 3 nights at the Regent in Hong Kong, because these were the hotels that were rated as the #1 in the world or #2 in the world, the finest. And I think it was the vision, and you know, Taj used to do a similar thing with food and beverage. They would send their chefs and they would send their F&B prodigies to the finest restaurants. But India was in quest of excellence. So excellence is not something which just happens. You know, Puneet shared with you that consistently for the last 3 years, it's a matter of great pride that you have, you know, 3 Indian brands, the Leela, the Oberoi, and the Taj, who have been featured amongst the top 10 global brands. Now, that has not happened overnight. It has been a decade long, because it takes you years and years to get there. And I'm just sharing with you the story that happened. You know, you plant a tree in 1990s, and then you get the fruit in 2020. You know, that's really what it is. So I just wanted to share that journey with you.
Thank you. I think more recent, I call this era now of the last 20 odd years as the Star Wars era, or the rise of the machines. 20 years ago when Kaal went on stage and presented his concept, people kind of laughed at him, and the travel agent said, "We're going to get this guy out of business very quickly." 20 years down the line, he's the one you want to embrace all the time and make sure you're close to him if you want to succeed in the hotel business, and that's going to carry on. So that's a significant change, and I personally feel that we're going to see a lot more dependence on technology, irrespective of which end of the spectrum you're in, whether you're up there in luxury, whether you're there in the mid-market or pure economy. Oyo showcased the use of technology in the economy sector. So I think this era is really strongly machines. It doesn't change the basic concept that even today, if you're a good and effective general manager, you get there on time, you walk your hotel, you're seen in the staff lockers, you check how the toilets are there, you walk through a laundry, you walk through a kitchen, places where general managers are normally never seen. You spend half your time on interacting with customers and preferably shaking hands and backslapping rather than doing it online. You then spend some time on the technology past and re-engineering yourself. So I think that's to my mind, that's going to be the overpowering sentiment in time to come, that you'll always be relevant as an innkeeper, but your dependence on technology or your knowledge or grasp of technology is going to make a difference in how effective you are in terms of your numbers, top lines and bottom lines, etc., etc. Always, to me, there's a big dichotomy on this whole thing of luxury versus the mid-market or economy space, and I'm not a great believer in luxury. I started in that area. I went on to the mid-market quite happily, and really, quite honestly, things like you have these beautiful women opening doors for you and building their biceps, or you get these international chefs making the small round things. What do you call them? The very colorful ones.
Ajay,
macarons,
yeah, profit rolls.
But what is luxury all about?
I'll just interrupt that. Ajay is wonderful, but he's not perfect. So we fully understand that you have yet to grasp the power of luxury.
I agree.
It's work in progress. I can understand that. Well, coming back to technology earlier, yes, it's omnipresent, so it's a given. It's an enabler. We all know that, and it's really the opportunities it offers for hyper-personalization. See, the highest form of services, you go from friendly service to courteous service to personalized service, and then you go to anticipatory service. So I think that as we make that journey into the anticipatory service, clearly AI and technology can help us towards achieving it. Whatever your goals are there. Ajay, to come back to your thing of, he cannot resist taking a pot shot at luxury. So this is an old habit which continues. Normally, it's a different conversation because his wife Vasudha is here, and she tells him exactly what that he's got it wrong. So today she's not here, so I have to do her job. And Ajay, see, it's a pyramid. There is always room at the top of the pyramid. So it is, you choose where you want to be in that pyramid. If you want to be at the bottom of the pyramid, good for you. You want to be in the middle of the pyramid, so be it. But you need to make up your mind where some people feel, they belong perhaps to the top of the pyramid because they feel that their strengths speak to that market segment, and that's where they should be. I take your point that luxury is a much abused, much misunderstood word. Just because you've got a little bit of glitter and some marble, polish, sparkle, that is not luxury. I mean, there's a difference between gold and golden. There's a difference between 10 carat, 20 carat, 24 carat. So the luxury spectrum.
Have the large multinational brands added more gravitas to that luxury segment?
So
India?
So Okay, I was just reading a JLED report which came out 2 weeks or 3 weeks, a month ago, and they were reporting that 27 to 28% of all hotel transactions that have happened in the last 1 year. You know, it's been the busiest year. They've done something like some 1700 crores worth of hotel investment has been done in the past 9 months of the year. But 27% of that has happened in the luxury upscale. You know, earlier we used to call it premium. Then premium got divided into luxury, upper upscale, upscale. So, so it's a crowded area, and there are a lot of pretenders there. You know, there are a lot of pretenders there. But I think luxury again as a concept, as we all know, has moved on. It's no longer just about materials, and it is experiential. So I think that to me, luxury is, of course, there's a hardware component, but it is ultimately the software that will define it. I mean, you have a hotel like Aman, or a brand like Aman, which will begin at $1,000, and clearly it will not have that ostentatious elements, which perhaps a Leela may have. Correct. But it's got a rate twice as much as Leela because of the service aspect and the other emotional. See, a hotel is really about. A great hotel is one that makes you feel great. A hotel is all about the emotions that it evokes, at least in the luxury spectrum. You know, that's how it works. That's my take on it.
Rajiv, at least half the guys and girls in this room would like us to fall off stage, so they can take our places. I mean, we've been there perhaps a little too long in the tooth, and we are still 60s, but we're still really young 60s now. And we're going to live to 90, maybe 100. Most people here are going to cross that milestone. How does one keep oneself relevant? The days of retiring at 58 and sort of packing it up are long gone. How much of a re-engineering does a person have to do in his 40s or 50s or 60s to be relevant in the workplace?
So I think that regardless of age, whether you are 65 or you are 35 or 45, we have all got to reinvent ourselves every 5 years. That's the world that the VUCA world that we live in. You have to reinvent yourself, and you have to augment your skill set. I think that may I just deflect the question a little bit?
Sure.
To the extent that we are living in a very changing world. We all know that, and we spend a lot of time that how are we going to cope with those changes. And when we are doing it, we forget to take out time to the most important part of all, which is, what is it that is not going to change at all? I think we need to focus on that. Regardless of every change that is going to happen, what is never going to change for the next 30 or 40 years for this industry? And now I link it to the question that you posed. I think that some of us who have been through a 40, 50-year journey have seen cycles, have that understanding, and don't have that myopic vision, because recent events will not blind you. Because you do understand that there is a cyclical, there are short cycles, long cycles, and then there is human nature, and then there are universal truths, and where all of these converge, that's not going to change, So, I mean, regardless of what technology does, whatever happens, excellence, there will always be a premium for excellence. There will always be a premium for quality. So that you cannot absolutely keep your eyes off. The definition of excellence may change. The market segment or the market, the market demographics may have. The younger generation may have elements that appeal to them which are very different from the older generation. Correct. But you've got to retain your leadership position in excellence. That's clearly something which you have to have customer centricity at all times. At the end of the day, we have our opinions, we have everything, but it is the customer, it is the guest. This whole thing is for the guest. And we've got to keep track of what exactly are the changing tastes and preferences of the guest and stay relevant to that. I'm just saying that there are some universal truths which we cannot take our eyes off that ball,
And the future of Indian tourism and hospitality is Amrit Kaal around the corner. Are we ever going to see it? We've been optimistic for a long time. I think a generation's gone by. From point of view of people working in the industry, from point of view our guests walking in and out of the hotels, from point of view of perhaps the powers that be and the government and the state thought process. What sort of a landscape do you see?
I think you're going to be a busy man because the sweet spot clearly is for something which is closer to your brand. Other brands are trying to create brands for that particular market segment. So clearly, tier 2 and tier 3 are going to be where there's going to be tremendous amount of activity that will be there. I think there are 2-3 things that I want to take this opportunity to highlight. Because we went through this trauma of COVID, and we went through this absolute trauma of profitability or lack of profitability, it has been center stage. But we've got to control this. I mean, profits are extremely important and they are center stage, but purpose is always greater than profits. And I feel that in many, and this is just saying as a well-wisher of the industry, and today I'm not really affiliated with any single brand, so one can, try and take an ombudsman position on it. That clearly one can see regrettably that, the desire for just this hunger for profit is perhaps distracting us from doing some important things. You have to make investment into the future because the future is going to be bigger and busier than yesterday. And you have to make serious investments in that, and not everything can be captured on the balance sheet. The war for the inflation that we are seeing for talent, the fact that people don't want to join our industry, we know the problems. We also have the solutions. But it is really, a couple of big decisions which are going to make a difference. I think that, and there are many people in this room who today are really the movers and shakers. So I would just urge you that, just cool it a little bit. When one speaks to the general managers and you see what they are doing, you see them spending so much time with numbers that you know that that's not right. They're spending hardly any time with the guest.
It's a fine line to balance, and
course
sure,
it
the
is,
guest
of
comes first for all of us. He must for any hospitality person. But at the end of the day, the pressure from boards and on CEOs and down the line is always going to be on that bottom line. Doesn't mean to say that we forget what we're there for. Also, if you're in for the good times, when your top line is good, it gives us enough leeway to experiment and to reinvest and to invest in things that matter a lot more. The tough times you can't do that. These times you have the extra let's say flab. You can afford all of that. Puneet mentioned this morning on the government and tourism and how we see things going forward. I don't know if this message can ever go across to the powers that be, but we've been working really hard in different associations, HAI and FHRAI, etc., to get to the national government and say, hey guys, don't just talk about tourism once in 5 years and say what a great thing it is. Do something about it. And our leading point is, can you call it infrastructure status? So capital loans become easier and have a longer life to repay. And people build hotels. There's more reason for people to build hotels. We're building the most fantastic roads in this country. It doesn't matter which state you're in, from the Tamil Nadus to the UPs, to the Kashmirs, to the Pondicherrys. Roads are getting better and better and better all along. What does it need? There is immense opportunity here for hundreds of thousands of hotels which fall 10, 20, 30 kilometers outside of a main city, where if people are traveling by road, you say instead of paying a 10,000 rupee rate in Gurgaon, I pay 4, 5, 6,000, 20 kilometers out, get a good night's sleep, get into my car in the morning and go for my work. Won't happen unless we see some help from the government, and I hope it's here and it comes. Difficult to predict anything beyond a 2 or 3 year horizon in a country like India. but things are looking really, really good at the moment. I don't think we've seen better times or better
That's
prospective futures. Rajiv?
Yeah. No, that's true. You see, we've been, for the longest time, all we wanted from the government was, please don't be in the way. That's all. We don't really expect anything to be done, but just don't be in the way. Because that's what was happening, 15 to 20 years ago. And in the last 10 years, the amazing infrastructure push, clearly has dividends for us. So that augurs very well, clearly. And I just go back to what I was talking about profits. Please don't. I don't want to misunderstand. Of course, we fully realize that. But my point is that what the industry needs today is a little more inspiration. What we need is some more inspirational leadership at all levels. Particularly at a unit level, because really a 20-year-old who's coming into the hotel needs to get inspired that this is a business. This is a fantastic business. I'm fortunate to be in this particular building in the city, and which goes back to, I think we've got a few minutes, Ajay, we were fortunate to have some outstanding mentors, and I think that who shaped us, and I think the time it's been our time to return the compliment, and we've been doing it for years, but I see a lot of young generation sitting here in the room, and I just want them to just take this a little more seriously and take out a little more time, and honestly ask yourself, how can I provide a little more inspirational leadership, to my area of influence.
It's incredible that even today, despite all your technology, a single person can make a dramatic difference to any hotel. And a single person can make a dramatic difference to any hotel company. And that's here to stay. You talked about mentors. I'd like to briefly mention the three that impacted me most in life. Rai Bahadur Mohan Singh Oberoi. And as a young GM, if you went to him with very complex problems, you could break it down into one or two sentences as a solution. The impact of just plain simplicity and common sense. Of course, Anil Madhok, who I worked with pretty much all my life in Sarovar and earlier in the Oberois, on the details of running a hotel, of being kind, as somebody mentioned this morning, and of making sure that if you're in a business, the business must be profitable and deliver good results to owners. And most important of all, an academician, Dean Robert Beck from Cornell, who taught us in France, and a single sentence, he said, always take your work seriously, but never take life too seriously.
I remember him saying, also don't take yourself too seriously, in this particular thing. In closing, I'll just say that, you mentioned Rai Bahadur. We were very young GMs, and we were exceptionally fortunate to have a chance to work with this amazing gentleman. He was 92, 93 years old, and I remember one day, the Iraq war had happened, and naturally profitability plummeted. I went there with a presentation. I went before that to see Mr. P.R.S. Oberoi, Mr. Vicky Oberoi, who was the managing director, made my presentation and took copious notes and came back, and then I wanted to see his father because his farm was next door, and I went to see him. And I said, Rai Bahadur, I started talking, so he slowed down. He says, look, let me order a lemonade for you or something first. And then he tells me, okay, what is it that you want to talk to me about? So I said, costs and this, and I'm doing ta-da-da-da. I went on about how we are going to have a 15% saving here and 20% saving there. And he just looked at me and heard me out, and he says, Rajiv, if I may make a suggestion, this is the chairman and this is his language, if I may make a suggestion, from my experience I have learned, and this is a nugget, that's why I'm sharing it with you. He says, from my experience I have learned that the only way to control a cost is to control it over a 24-hour period. If you cannot control it within 24 hours, chances are you will not be able to control the cost. And here we were looking at weekly, monthly, because our data would not come in so fast. So it was really very basic seat of the pants management, but it works. So that's really, and again it goes back to that our business is 90% common sense. It's 90% common sense, really. You know, of course, we've all been to business schools that we, you know, if you've got to be paid 7 and 8 million, eight-digit salaries, you've got to make it a little more complex than that. You can't just pin it down to common sense. But that's really what it is, you know. So keep it simple. Keep it simple.
Rajiv, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being such a fantastic audience. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ajay.